This is one of the greatest crime mystery films in Hollywood history. From the cast to the plot and every little detail, it became a timeless classic. The story keeps flipping on you, and the ending hits you from the side while still making perfect sense. The whole thing takes place in Los Angeles in the 1950s. On the surface, it's the city of angels, but underneath, drugs run wild, gangs control the streets, and the police force is rotten to the core. The crime boss at the top uses his power to do anything he wants. To get rid of this tumor once and for all, the LAPD went with the simplest and most effective plan. They arrested the mob boss for tax evasion. It worked. They got him behind bars. But it also created a huge new problem. With the boss locked up, the entire organization fell into a power vacuum. People hiding in the shadows began making moves, each one hoping to take his place. One night, detectives Bud and Stensland were out buying booze for the guys at the station when they accidentally saw a parolee beating his wife. Bud hates men who hit women. He immediately jumped out of the car, beat the guy down, and cuffed him to the garden rail. Bud warned him that if he ever laid a hand on her again, he'd arrest him for child endangerment. And once you enter prison with that label, what waits for you inside is pure hell. Bud is the most righteous man in the department, but he also has a bad temper. The complete opposite of him is Jack, a smooth-talking officer who's basically the station's PR celebrity. They even call him the police movie star. He sells insider tips to Hush Hush magazine and uses the media to boost his fame, making him the most published face in the department. That day, a movie actor was caught doing drugs at home. Whenever Hush Hush's photographer Sid got a tip, he'd send Jack to make the arrest, so Sid could rush in, snap photos of the scene, slap on a sensational headline, and instantly double the magazine's sales. Meanwhile, a rookie named Ed Exley arrived at the station. His father had been a cop too, killed in the line of duty. Ed joined the force with the highest score on the civil exam. Captain Dudley wanted to place him in the administrative unit, but Ed had bigger ambitions. He wanted to work homicide. Dudley pushed back and asked him tough questions. Would he plant evidence to make sure obviously guilty criminals get convicted? Would he torture suspects to make them confess? Would he shoot a fleeing suspect in the back so his lawyer couldn't twist the case later? These were the normal tactics of homicide detectives, and Ed couldn't do any of them. Even so, he stayed firm. Dudley gave him one last piece of advice. If you want to be a detective, start by taking off those glasses. These three completely different men were dragged into the same storm because of one business card. During the drug bust arrest, Jack found a card that read, "Whatever you desire, fleur-de-lis." He didn't think much of it at the time and slipped it into his pocket before heading back to the station with treats for the guys on duty. Suddenly, a group of Mexican suspects were brought in. They had attacked officers earlier, blinding one cop. Hearing this, Stensland stormed into the interrogation room, ready to avenge his brother officer. Ed tried to stop them, but got pushed aside by the crowd. Not long after, Bud and Jack showed up too, just in time for a reporter to snap photos of the cops beating the prisoners. The next day, that photo was splashed across the newspapers. The chief was furious, worried the scandal would destroy the LAPD's public image. So he came up with a plan: find someone to take the fall, then have other officers testify against him. That way, the department could erase the negative press and show the world that they were fair and just. The first person they approached was Bud. The chief wanted to sacrifice his partner Stensland, but Bud refused to betray him. Instead, he turned in his badge and gun and accepted suspension. Ed walked in next. Not only did he agree to testify, he even suggested the same idea the chief was thinking: pick a few officers close to retirement and have them take the blame to protect the department's reputation. The chief immediately saw Ed differently and promoted him to head of the detective unit on the spot. Dudley warned him that this move would get him isolated, but Ed didn't care. He knew exactly what he wanted. Jack came in last. Smooth as ever, he didn't want to offend his co-workers by testifying, but when the chief threatened to take away all his privileges, Jack agreed right away. After the hearing, Dudley approached Bud privately to get him reinstated. He purposely revealed that Ed's testimony had pushed Stensland out, hoping to balance the power inside the department and make sure Ed didn't grow too bold. Dudley also passed along the chief's real message. With the mob boss behind bars, the underworld was in chaos, creating big headaches for the LAPD. They needed someone to quietly clean up the mess. Under Dudley's orders, Bud began eliminating the scum on the streets. For several days straight, the front pages were all about mobsters turning up dead. The city fell into fear, and everyone Everyone began speculating. Someone powerful was making a move to take over everything the mob boss left behind. That day at the station, Jack noticed the same fleur-de-lis pattern on an internal case file, identical to the one on the business card he found earlier. He tried dialing the number on the card, but the person on the other end instantly sensed something was off and hung up. Jack suspected it was tied to a high-end escort ring and wanted Sid to help him dig deeper, but Sid wasn't interested at all. While Jack was busy chasing leads, Stensland's career was also coming to an end. After saying goodbye to his colleagues, he pretended to walk away casually, and Edmund was left completely isolated because everyone saw him as the guy who snitched. That night, one person after another clocked out, leaving Edmund alone in the squad room, feeling the weight of his new position as team leader. But that loneliness didn't last long. A call came in about a homicide at the Night Owl coffee shop, and responding to that case would completely change his career. When Edmund arrived, only one officer was guarding the exit. He assumed it was just a simple robbery, but something felt wrong. The cash drawer was untouched, and a trail of blood led straight to the bathroom. What he saw inside almost made him throw up. The massacre immediately caught Dudley's attention, and he personally came to lock down the scene. His team found 15 Remington shotgun shells. Dudley guessed there were 3 shooters, each emptying a full tube magazine before fleeing. Then came the real shock. One of the victims was Stensland, the officer who had just been fired, and in the bathroom were 2 women. One was a restaurant waitress, and the other was a girl Bud had met once. He remembered her clearly. On Christmas Eve, he had gone to a bar to buy liquor, and a woman in a black cloak walked in, stunningly beautiful. She instantly knew he was a cop. When Bud stepped outside afterward, he saw a girl sitting nervously in a parked car with bandages on her nose. Thinking she'd been abused, he stepped in to help. The driver tried to stop him, and Bud pinned him against the car. The man claimed he used to be a cop, but Bud didn't recognize him. Then the woman in the black cloak stepped out and said everything was fine, and the girl echoed her. Bud backed off reluctantly, and Stensland mentioned later that he knew the driver and confirmed he really was a former officer, even giving a strange smile. Bud didn't think much of it back then. Now, seeing both Stensland and that girl lying dead shocked him. Her name was Sue, and because of the plastic surgery she'd had, even her own mother needed a birthmark to recognize her. The Night Owl killing hit the front page the next morning. Based on eyewitness reports, Dudley listed 3 black men as suspects. Someone had seen them near the Night Owl with shotguns, driving a 1948 maroon Mercury coupe. That was all the police had to go on. The entire division was split into teams to hunt them down, but no one wanted to partner with Edmund. When Edmund heard Jack had an important lead, he volunteered to tag along, and the two formed a temporary team. Meanwhile, Bud discovered that Sue and the woman in the black cloak, Lynn, were connected to a wealthy man named Patchett. Patchett ran a specialized studio where he surgically transformed girls to look like movie stars and then profited from them. That explained the bandages on Sue's nose. Patchett told Bud to catch the Night Owl killers fast before they ruined his newly groomed moneymakers. After leaving Patchett's mansion, Bud found Lynn while she was servicing a politician. He finally understood her true identity, but Lynn didn't know why Sue had been at the Night Owl either. Each girl worked her own circle, and although they all belonged to Patchett, they never interfered with each other's clients. Lynn had a good impression of Bud. She remembered how he stood up for women. Bud was drawn to her as well, and before leaving, he asked her out on a date. At the same time, Jack and Edmund tracked down a young guy in the black neighborhood, a local informant. He told them the 3 suspects lived just 5 minutes away. They liked shooting at dogs with shotguns, and they drove a maroon Mercury coupe. Jack and Edmund rushed over only to find another police team had beaten them there. Shotguns and spent shells were found inside the car, and it seemed obvious these 3 were the killers. Once the targets were confirmed, Edmund stepped up and told everyone to follow his lead. Normally, the officers would just storm in, gun the suspects down, and bring the bodies back as proof, claiming the Night Owl case was solved. But Edmund stopped them, insisting they take the men alive and solve the case through proper interrogation. Soon, the 3 suspects were brought in. Ballistics matched the shells, and each man had a long criminal record. Everyone thought the case was basically over. The only question left was how to get them to confess. Edmund volunteered to handle the interrogation. His tactics were legendary. Anyone curious should watch the original film. With just a few questions, he got suspect number number 1 to admit they were planning to sell stolen drugs. When Edmund pressed the hidden button under the desk, the confession piped straight into the second interrogation room. Hearing his partner spill everything, suspect number 2 panicked. Edmund saw he'd wet his pants. When he confronted him, the man broke down and cried that he hadn't killed anyone, and that the woman they'd taken should still be alive. Suddenly, there was a second female victim. Edmund grew tense and asked where she was, but suspect number 2 was too shaken to answer. Edmund went to suspect number 3 and immediately demanded to know where the woman was. That set Bud off. He stormed into the room, slammed the man against the wall, shoved his gun into his mouth, and demanded the woman's location. Terrified, suspect number 3 finally talked. Everyone rushed to the address. Bud charged in first. Dudley knew exactly what Bud intended to do and ordered everyone else to hold position. Bud slipped inside, finding a woman tied naked to a bed, barely conscious. He checked the adjoining room and shot the man inside. After confirming the suspect was dead, he fired another shot toward the doorway, then placed the gun in the man's hand, staging a fake suspect resisted arrest scene. When the others arrived, the woman had already been untied and was curled quietly on the bed. Paramedics rushed her out, and Edmund tried catching up to ask what really happened. The 3 suspects hadn't fully confessed to the prostitution ring. They had only mentioned drugs and the woman. Bud stopped him and told him to stay away from her. Ever since Stensland was forced out, Bud had resented Edmund. Edmund, on the other hand, hated Bud's methods. Killing suspects and framing them for attacking officers was disgusting to him. The two were about to fight when Dudley stepped in with his men, warning Edmund never to provoke Bud again. Just then, another alert hit the police radio. 3 black suspects had escaped from the station. Edmund immediately thought of the drug stash location they had confessed to earlier. After confirming the address, he and his partner rushed over, kicked down the door, and sure enough, the 3 were all inside. The moment they saw armed officers burst in, they threw up their hands. But right then, an accident happened. A liquor bottle hit the floor, and in an instant it became a death sentence. Gunfire exploded. The suspects were hit again and again, and collapsed. Edmund reacted quickly and shot down several of them, but one suspect managed to slip away in the chaos. Edmund chased him all the way to the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, he jammed his gun between them and fired without hesitation. Blood splattered across his face, and that shot earned him the first commendation of his career. The chief praised him as a heroic crime buster, pinned a medal on him in front of the media, and publicly announced that the Night Owl killing case was officially closed. The shadow of the Night Owl killing case looked like it had finally lifted, but the conspiracy behind it was still quietly unfolding. Someone had taken compromising photos of a councilman with Lynn and was now blackmailing him for favors. Meanwhile, the Fleur-de-Lis club was growing bigger under the wealthy man's control. Bud kept sinking deeper into the world of dirty cops, but slowly he started to hate what he was becoming. Lynn kept appearing in his thoughts, and one day he couldn't hold back anymore. He went to find her. The two clicked instantly and naturally fell into each other's arms. Across town, Jack faced his own dilemma. Sid wanted an explosive headline this time. Knowing the district attorney was gay, he hired a washed-up male actor and told him to seduce the DA while Sid snapped photos to create a scandal. Jack recognized the actor. He'd arrested him for drugs before, a setup Sid had also orchestrated. Jack didn't want to ruin the same man twice, but Sid had already struck a deal with him. If he pulled it off, Sid would help resurrect his career. The actor desperately needed a second chance, so he gathered his courage and walked toward the DA. After he left, Jack asked Sid about the rich man running the club. Sid hinted that the guy was powerful, always making money in the gray areas. He told Jack not to get himself involved, just wait for instructions and head to the motel for the big bust. Later that night, Jack sat in a bar staring at the $50 in his hand and his own reflection in the mirror. Suddenly, he felt disgusted with himself. He left the money as a tip on the counter and drove straight to the motel. But when he arrived, the room was eerily quiet. The actor had been murdered. Guilt crashed over Jack. This was the first time he truly realized he had crossed a line. Not long after, Edmund was escorting an injured woman out of the hospital when he accidentally learned she had lied on the stand. On the night of the Night Owl killing case murder, the 3 black men were never there. They had assaulted this Mexican woman, and because the law couldn't give her justice, she accused them out of revenge. Before Edmund could even process the truth, reporters rushed in to capture this moment of justice. The darkness in his heart resurfaced. Meanwhile, after being with Lynn, Bud finally told her why he hated men who beat women. As a child, he had witnessed his father murder his mother, then handcuffed Bud to a radiator, forcing him to stay beside her corpse for 3 days. Growing up, Bud became a cop, hoping to fight evil, but without realizing it, he had become part of it. He had long suspected something was off about the night owl killing case, but never knew where to start. With Lynn encouraging him, he went to the coroner to look for clues. The coroner explained that the attackers might have been after Stans. Stans was killed outside, which explained why his blood was on the wall, and crime scene photos showed someone had been sitting across from Stans before he died. That made Bud think of Sue. He went to Sue's mother and showed her Stan's photo, asking if this was Sue's boyfriend. When she confirmed it, Bud knew something was wrong. Then he noticed the back door stuffed with a towel. Sue's mother said there had been a foul smell for days, probably a dead rat in the basement. But Bud didn't think it smelled like a rat at all. He opened the basement door, crawled down, and found a body wrapped up on the floor. After checking the pockets, he realized this was the driver from that night. He didn't mention the body and lied that it really was just a rat, leaving some money for Sue's mother before he left. Bud decided to reopen the night owl killing case investigation. Edmund stared at his medal and came to the same conclusion. He went to the coroner, learned Bud had visited Sue's mother, and rushed over himself. He found the same body in the basement and brought it back to the station, urging the coroner to confirm the identity. Then he went to Jack, asking him to help reopen the case. Jack didn't want any part of it, until Edmund said one name, Rollo Tomasi. Edmund explained that his father had been murdered by an unknown criminal who was never caught. So Edmund invented this name to remind himself of the man who always got away. That's why he became a cop. Jack thought of the dead actor and agreed to help. At the same time, Bud tracked down the rich man's bodyguard, asking about the driver. The bodyguard only knew the death had something to do with drugs, but didn't realize someone was tailing him. After leaving the bar, he went to see Lynn again. Jack recognized Lynn and began to suspect the night owl killing case was tied to the Fleur-de-Lis club, which catered to the upper class. They decided to confront the wealthy man, but he was sly and refused to say anything. Then headquarters called. The coroner had identified the body. Edmund headed out to find Lynn, wanting to know why she was close to Bud. Jack returned to the station to get the identity report, promising to meet Edmund later at the motel before they split up. Watching them leave, the wealthy man called Sid. Back at the station, Jack learned two crucial facts. The dead man was a former cop, and he had been Stan's partner. Meanwhile, Edmund showed up at Lynn's place, intending to get information, but instead he got seduced. They fell to the floor together, unaware that Sid was hiding in the shadows, capturing everything on camera. Caught up in the moment, Edmund completely forgot his meeting with Jack. After waiting too long, Jack drove to Dudley, confused and needing answers. Dudley, the longest-serving officer, knew the dead ex-cop well, but Jack brought up a case from 12 years ago, a blackmail case involving the wealthy man, handled by Stans and the driver. Dudley froze. He questioned why Jack suddenly cared about doing the right thing, then warned him that trying to become a good cop was dangerous. Jack ignored the warning, saying he had just checked the files and hadn't had time to tell Edmund yet. As soon as he finished speaking, a gunshot rang out. Jack stared at Dudley in disbelief, everything becoming clear in an instant. With his final breath, he whispered one name, Rollo Tomasi. Jack used his life to leave a clue. Dudley, hearing that name, would know exactly who had told him. The next day, Dudley announced Jack's death. As everyone walked away, he stopped Edmund and asked if he had ever heard the name Rollo Tomasi. Edmund's face changed immediately. He knew Jack must have met Dudley before he died. Otherwise, Dudley could never know that name. Edmund played dumb and said no, but Dudley still had no intention of letting him go. Dudley summoned Bud next. He had captured Sid and pretended to question him about Jack. Unable to withstand the torture, Sid confessed everything. He made money photographing scandals and sometimes helped the wealthy man take pictures. Recently, he had taken photos of Edmund and Lynn, which were hidden under his car seat. Lynn's Edmund's name set Bud off. He rushed out, found the photos in the back seat, and immediately sped back to the station. Seeing his plan working perfectly, Dudley returned to his office. His real aim was simple: set Bud and Edmund on a collision course and let them kill each other. But things didn't go as planned. Bud went to Lynn first. Like a jealous husband, he shouted, lost control, and even slapped her. The moment he did it, he realized he had turned into the kind of man he hated most. Unable to accept it, he ran back into the rain. With that little bit of time, Edmund dug through old files in the basement. He found the 12-year-old case, saw Dudley's signature, and connected it to Jack's death. Just then, Bud barged in and punched him. The two fought hard until Edmund fired back with the truth. Dudley killed Jack, and the photos Bud saw were given to him by Dudley. But Bud was too furious to hear any of it, and destroyed the entire office. Afterwards, Edmund curled up in the corner and told Bud the whole story from start to finish. Dudley, Stenz, and the driver had known each other for years, and it's likely they teamed up to make money 12 years ago. No one knows why they split, but after the driver started working for the tycoon, he accidentally got his hands on a stash of drugs. When Stenz found out, he killed the driver and hid the body in his lover Sue's house. Dudley also wanted the drugs, so he staged the night owl killing massacre and pinned everything on the three black men. He planted the guns in their car and planned to kill them, but Jack and Ed showed up just in time, ruining the plan. The later jailbreak was also orchestrated by Dudley so he could openly kill them and close the night owl killing case. What he didn't expect was that all three officers would reopen the investigation on their own. Jack must have discovered the truth and gone to Dudley, which is why he was silenced. Afraid everything would come out, Dudley teamed up with the tycoon and set up a honey trap to lure Ed into a date with Lynn. After taking photos to provoke Bud, Dudley figured that no matter who killed who in the fight, the survivor wouldn't get away. That would get rid of all three of them and bury the truth forever. So when the mob boss was arrested back then, the ones who truly wanted to take over the underworld were Dudley and the tycoon. They were in it together, sharing profits and trying to control all of Los Angeles. After hearing Ed's breakdown of the case, Bud finally calmed down. They came into the job for justice, but they had both fallen into the darkness without realizing it. Now was the time to fight back together. Bud went to the district attorney and demanded 24-hour surveillance on Dudley and the tycoon, along with full access to their bank records. The DA refused, so Ed brought up the incident with the actor that night. The DA still denied it. Bud snapped and beat him until the DA finally admitted that Dudley and the tycoon had been blackmailing him, and the actor overheard it, which is why they killed the actor. Everything finally connected, and Bud and the others went straight after the tycoon. But Dudley was faster. He staged the tycoon's death as a suicide, complete with a note confessing to every crime, including Jack's murder. Dudley planned to wipe out anyone who knew the truth. They immediately thought of Lynn and sent someone to protect her, but Lynn had already been tortured and still refused to say a word. Her loyalty moved Bud deeply. After a quick discussion, they split up. Ed rushed to protect Lynn while Bud went to Sid for evidence, but Sid was already dead and his house torn apart. At that moment, both men received an invitation from Dudley to meet at the motel. After they regrouped, the lights in the distance suddenly went out. They instantly knew it was a trap, but it was too late. Dudley had already sent gunmen to kill them. Bud reacted first, grabbed the gun from the car, and the two of them hid in a room. A full-on shootout erupted. Working together, they took out the attackers one by one. Just as they thought it was over, Dudley stepped through the door. At the last second, Bud shoved Ed out of the way and was shot. Ed raised his gun at Dudley. He hesitated. Should he shoot him in the back or make an arrest? Dudley was certain Ed wouldn't shoot a suspect from behind and arrogantly walked forward. But Ed thought of all the people Dudley had killed. He finally pulled the trigger and shot Dudley dead. When the police arrived, he raised his badge and laid out all of Dudley's crimes. The chief refused to let the truth get out because it would ruin the department's reputation, so he said they would publicly honor Dudley as a hero who died in the line of duty. Ed seized the moment and said, "In this situation, you'll need more than one hero." The chief understood. Dudley was declared a martyr, and Ed once again became a celebrated crime fighter. Bud survived and chose to retire, spending the rest of his life with Lynn. Bud's fire, Ed's clarity, and Jack's awakening came together to carve out a sliver of justice through the fog of Los Angeles corruption. This 1997 crime thriller didn't rely on flashy effects or perfect heroes. Instead, its tight storytelling, layered characters, and heavy themes turned it into a timeless classic.